Yes, our little urchin is back in the building again, and it's time for some live PMO news. And I think, John, you're going to take the news chair this time, aren't you? And share some wonderful PMO related news with us all.
I am indeed in the news chair today for you. Let me just share my screen for you. Hold up. Right, I must warn you, it's a bit PMI heavy this month. And the main reason is they've had the PMI have had their kind of global conference in LA the way this year. So a lot of stuff coming out of that. So they tend to drop a whole lot of stuff when they're having their conference. So a few things. They've released their most influential projects of 2024. Those are defined as transformative projects making progress towards the United Nations or sustainability and development goals across the globe. There's some interesting ones on the list. 3D kidney printing, always good if you need another kidney. Seaweed-based biodegradable packaging. So you've got packaging that kind of just degrades into nothing rather than filling the oceans with plastic. And reducing dengue fever by releasing the World Mosquito Program, kind of people driving around on mopeds, releasing mosquitoes that have a certain virus that means actually those mosquitoes are less able to transmit diseases, which is a good thing. It's reduced dengue fever massively. So if ever you're in a situation where you're sitting there going, oh, maybe you're believing all the product management hype about project management being old school, and what's the point, and the agilists saying what's the point in project managers only, it's a great place to hop over to and remind yourself of all the good things that project managers, all the good initiatives that project managers are leading around the world that are driving humanity, I suppose, forwards. Humanity, but not so much. Yeah, forwarding the advances of humanity, even if we're not forwarding the advances of mosquitoes quite as much. I'll chuck all these links in chat in a second, by the way, but I seem to be unable to multitask at the moment. Other news, so they had their global summit. Now, interestingly for the summit, 25 of the sessions they had over there were all sort of AI of some shape or another. So there was a lot of talk of AI. They're getting very excited about AI and the possibilities of it at the moment. And I spoke to a couple of people that went. I couldn't go this year, sadly, but they said those sessions tended to be packed. So actually, not only were there a lot of sessions on it, a lot of people were going to those sessions and trying to get their heads around what AI means to them, mainly focused on generative AI, the sort of chat GPTs and all those kind of things. They also relaunched what they call their Infinity Copilot. I'll show a link for that in a second. If you're a PMI member, it's there and it's free to use. It's built on ChatGPT. It's basically, if you've ever played with ChatGPT, they've loaded it and trained it very specifically on PMI's body of knowledge, PMI's back catalogue of articles, and trained it to be a project manager assistant. So it's ChatGPT, but with a strong project manager focus designed to help project managers doing their jobs as well. So they did that one. And they've done a new paper there, Transforming Project Management with Gen AI Innovation. Again, I'll share the link to that one. They're talking about how organizations are starting to adopt AI across their project portfolios. A note from that one, they're sort of saying it is crucial for organizations to integrate generative AI into project frameworks to help professionals achieve best results. And without organizational commitment and strategic support for Gen AI adoption, professionals might struggle to maximize efficiency and innovation. So this is really about saying where you've got in your organization, you've got your framework, you've got your SharePoint site, you've got templates for people. The next step from templates is actually now having some custom generative AI there to actually help people think through the process of setting up the not so much the documents they need, but the information they need, and they need to communicate effectively and things like that. So that's sort of where they're looking at Gen AI at the moment. And then, of course, if you can link it into your systems and your databases, then you get that richer insight from it as well. Now, the other interesting thing from PMI, they've only gone and redefined project success. Yes, they have. So this is their new definition of project success. Successful projects deliver value that justifies the effort and expense, which I don't know other people's opinions on this one, but I have two thoughts on this one. Firstly, for me, is that it's they've kind of reduced it down so much that it's something that's very, very hard to argue with, but equally it's very, very unexciting. I mean, yeah, that kind of works at a simple level. But what's interesting for me, and I'm interested in other people's opinions as well in the group here, but what's interesting is they seem to be shifting further and further away from being about project management and project managers. So they're less focused on how we're defining the success of project management and looking more holistically at projects as a whole. So it's project success, not project management success. And this is just a little bit that their president and CEO has said about it. So it's going beyond project management success and simplifying to project success. So we must take accountability as project managers, this is saying, for beyond the technical side of our work, we need to look at what truly matters, which is stakeholder perspective and the value of a project relative to what it took to get there. Profession must embrace this shift and hold ourselves accountable for the ultimate success of our projects, not just their proper management. So this is quite a sort of mindset shift for them, basically saying, look, although we're training you how to be good project managers, technically delivering a project to a traditional triangle of time, cost, quality is not enough. And they're shifting a lot more to focus on success of projects as seen through the eyes of the stakeholders. Eileen or Lindsay, got any sort of thoughts on that one?
Well, I just think that I'm just busy typing in here that kind of life moves on. The world continues to change, and it's, I am of an age where I've seen lots of change in kind of project and program management since I started, and I think you just have to be careful you don't come across as a Luddite. We all recognise the value of having it as a kind of protected word, but I think the world's very different to how it was when Prince 2 MSP came out now over 20 years ago.
Yeah, well, we've just got into a little chat on the sidelines here about that word value. I mean, I've always disliked that word. I remember going back years and years at one of those APMG birds of a feather sessions. You remember they used to do those years ago when it was all about you could go sit round tables and talk about like methodologies and stuff like that. And I think that word value first started coming out. So this is like years and years ago, and it's just such a nebulous term, and why we all jumped onto the value rather than benefits, you know what I mean? It's like this feels really a nebulous word that's getting bandied around quite a lot.
Well, I suppose that's the question is, can you have a benefit that is of no value to the organization?
Oh, yes. Yeah, anyway, so yeah, value.
Yeah, and for me, obviously, it links back to this idea of do the ends justify the means, kind of implying, which then leads to, are we delivering projects ethically or not? And because we're sort of justifying it not just in terms of are we justifying it in terms of just the effort and the expense, but where's the sort of ethics and how we've delivered it and those kind of things as well is another interesting point to that one. I like to Tanya's on the Zoom with us, and if you want to join in the Zoom chat live with us for future sessions, by the way, do sign up on the House of PMO website. You'll get the Zoom link and you can join the kind of inner circle on these rather than watching on Zoom or YouTube. But she said, Tanya said, I'm torn with this new definition. It sounds cool, but what happened to simply making the business case come true? Might it be an excuse for management not to define success in the beginning and just go with the flow, which I think is a fair observation. If you've got project managers that are suddenly, what happens for a project manager then if they're delivering to the business case and yet some stakeholders are pulling in a different direction? Is it all stakeholders we're focused on, or the ones that are aligned to the business cases? It raises a lot of questions there. And does this also kind of tie in with a wider trend of project managers having less of a sort of a disciplined tool set to how we deliver projects, and being far more, to Stuart's pithily noting, isn't that agile, and this kind of agile way of not defining crisp versions of things and goals as well. So it's going to be interesting. It feels, yeah, it's an interesting change. We'll see how it all, like with all these things, it's a one-liner, and we'll need to see how they actually translate it and apply it to their training and development going forwards, and what they're expecting out of project managers that are part of their community, I guess. Anyway, life is not all about PMI, people. Outside of PMI, not many new and exciting reports out in September. So one there, Governance of Industry 4.0 in virtual organizations. So this is talking about organizations that are very heavily tech focused, and crucially mainly distributed, so not in sort of one central office all over the place. It's an interesting read. There's nothing groundbreaking in there. I'll share the link in a minute for you. It does emphasize the importance, though, of dynamic and adaptable governance structures, which is a place where the PMO has to play, where you've got projects that are running different modes of delivery, agile, lean, all these kind of things. Then we need to work out what does governance look like in each of those contexts, and how do we translate it up to align closely with the organizational governance around it. So dynamic adaptable governance was a big thing they focused on in that. And using technology to support collaboration, well, yeah, that's kind of same old, I think. But then sort of taking that and applying this to the PMO level, one of the things they were talking about with risk and governance was to actually make sure governance models and risk models are explicitly considering cybersecurity, data privacy, and system operability. And thinking about it with projects inside organizations, that's often an area where I've seen PMOs quite content to say, well, cyber risk, that's down to the cybersecurity team tucked away in IS somewhere in a dark corner. And data privacy, well, that's down to the DPO. System interoperability, that's down to the architects in tech. But the question here is, should we, with tech being such a fundamental part of everything we do, and data being part of that, is this something that the PMO should be asking up front when we're looking to projects to seed their seed their risk logs and things, or even further back, sort of thinking about building in these kind of controls as sort of into the design of our projects and the design of our sort of structures on things. And the other one there, the new-ish I put, because it did technically come out in June, but House of PMO had a session in September exploring their reports, so PMO versus project controls, essentially looking at all these people that are from, whether you class yourselves as PMO or project controls. The idea is looking at projects through different lenses and perspectives. They're coming at things from different ways. Understanding what the differences are between the terminology used between the two, the different roles they both have, and how we can kind of come together and support. And I think there's quite a big call to arms in that as well, for looking at sort of training, development, and clear career paths in both of those there. So again, neither of those have anything revolutionary or groundbreaking, but they are both quite insightful, interesting reads for you as well. And the last one from me before we move on, most important one for me, something I'm very, very passionate about, PMO flash mobs are back. Now, I suspect there are some people listening who have never heard of a PMO flash mob. These started many years ago, and it was when flash mobs were a thing. The idea was you've got PMO people embedded in organizations all over the place. And wouldn't it be great if we got those people together in one place for one night only, like one of these music flash mobs, not dancing or singing, but just coming together, putting the world to rights, and then fading back into the background again, back to our departments as we went. So we got together 2013, Lindsay said. So it was pub meetups and some sort of more structured sessions in people's offices, but it's about getting PMO people together, sharing ideas, and making you feel, especially for those who are in a PMO of one, that you're not alone and there's a wider community out there. So they stopped for COVID. It's taken a while, but I'm really, really happy that House of PMO are bringing those back. So Eileen, Lindsay, thank you so much for that. 10th of October, I look forward to seeing you in person in London. And if anyone else is around, do come and join.
I've been at the old pictures of some of the early flash mobs. Thank goodness me. There's certainly some familiar looking people on there, and on here as well, that are looking a little bit older. However, yes, we're going to give it a go. So the first one's back on the 10th of October. We've got another one planned for later in November as well, still in London. But yeah, no, it will be good fun. And looking forward to it immensely, aren't we, Eileen?
Well, yes, I've been trying to kind of persuade the powers that be to kind of do them for the last 6 months. So it's really good to kind of get them off the ground again. So
yes, absolutely. Anyway, it's over to you, Eileen, because we wanted to do some a session. I think it was a couple of months ago, maybe, we were talking about self-help, and we know that a lot of people have these kind of things on their bookshelves. So Eileen has got more books than most. So we asked her to do some digging, and you've come up with a self-help that you think is going to be useful for PMO people. Yeah, do you want to take over and tell us all about it?
Can I take over? I don't think so. Right then. So the book that I'm looking at is Grit, which is called Why Passion and Resilience Are the Secrets to Success. So this is I have got it. I have purchased the book. It's been in my library for a bit, but I've really taken to doing audiobooks as I drive up and down now. So I've also got it as an audiobook and listen to it, just for those who are interested, at 1.5 speed. Just because I can't bear the slowness of it being read at normal pace. But there we go. It means my husband won't let me have it on when he's in the car. But this book, well, I suppose I like to read self-help books in the kind of continuous strive to be a little bit better than what I am, in all kind of ranges of life. So Grit was a book that I picked up because I just thought it was this ability to kind of dig in and do better. So that's why I bought it. Eventually got round to reading it, and it was probably a little bit different to what I'd anticipated. It was written by, as I say, this lady called Angela Duckworth, who has got more degrees than most, done a number of jobs in terms of being a KPMG, then gave it up for teaching, then looked at the psychology of getting children to learn better, and tried very much around trying to understand why some children did better than others at school. And she, I think, was quite surprised by the results, and basically found lots of very talented children didn't do well as expected, and lots of less talented children kind of overtook them. And she really wanted to understand why. And so she came up with this kind of concept of grit, which, if we go to the next slide, is not necessarily a new thing. It's been around for a long time. And even Darwin said, you know, from an intellectual perspective, people don't necessarily change an awful lot. You know, there are people who are kind of, you know, exceptionally brilliant, or so we think. But if they don't work and actually use their intelligence, then actually, you know, they don't get very far. And so this whole concept of kind of zeal and hard work is what gets us there. Now, you know, we have lots of kind of thinking about, well, is it really just hard work? Is there something a bit more to that? Surely you've just got to have a kind of a little bit of talent as we go through. And she goes through, and there's lots of, for all of those who are more academically minded, there's lots of stuff where she's done studies that have been published in papers to support that. But she came up, if we go to the next page, she came up with this kind of definition of grit. Are we there, Lindsay? The next page. Oh, she's not speaking to me. She's gone. Yes. Thank you. So grit has been this passion and perseverance towards long-term goals. And she definitely kind of differentiated it from resilience, which is this ability to bounce back. Grit is this kind of having some passion for something and actually kind of working hard to move forward. And it does actually include resilience, because if we put the next bit, she actually kind of breaks down grit into having some goals, some resilience, and some intention in what we're doing. And it takes time. It's not something that you can do over 2 minutes. And one of the reasons why this book caught my eye is I've been to in kind of previous lives when I've been to different organizations, and it used to make me laugh when I used to go and see some salespeople to sell some training. They'd say, we're going to go and see a PMO manager. They're a bit, how can we say it? A bit, and I would use a bit kind of outspoken, blunt, you know, kind of very, not necessarily very driven, but actually kind of quite sure of what they want. And this is the kind of greatest predictor of success. And I think I've said on a few sessions here before, I would really like the opportunity to veto anybody who's going to be appointed as a PMO manager, because unless you've got this level of grit, we're probably going to struggle with getting some success. So that, you know, it does tie up to me. There's kind of links. I was doing it about just me kind of working a little bit harder and doing things a little bit better. But actually, as we went through the book, there was lots of things that I thought, actually, you know, that's really relevant to kind of how we work within a PMO. There's very few kind of PMOs are kind of really straightforward and kind of we just kind of bob into work and kind of do a bit and work. But what was really important is in terms of the things that we need. If we don't think we've got grit, if we wanted to develop it, is underlying some of the underlying elements, and I haven't put them all here, but a couple of the ones that I think are important is this concept of a growth mindset. Now, I often talk about my husband. He provides lots of input for all of these. He kind of thinks, well, you've got a talent. If you cannot do it, you cannot do it, and if you can, you can. But the growth mindset is really about saying, well, actually, if we kind of persevere, then actually we can develop. And the studies have shown that you can develop neural pathways in your brain, and you can actually kind of develop. And hard work will get you there twice as fast as just mere talent. So that kind of, you obviously there's certain elements you need to have in terms of to get that grade to get you started, but actually working hard in a focused way will actually kind of move you forward. And one of the great phrases they use within the book is they say failure is a temporary outcome. So they kind of say, well, actually, we can kind of fail at this time, but actually we can continue to kind of try and work hard, and we'll move forward. The second thing is that it isn't just about doing kind of lots of things all at one time. It is being absolutely focused and making sure that your goals are aligned to some of your, kind of sometimes there's kind of situations we're in, or kind of the people who I work with, but making sure that those goals, even though we can't do them now, they're actually kind of going to be achievable. So, and also kind of not having kind of 27 disparate goals. There's nothing saying you can't have more than one goal, but actually just making sure they're all kind of in alignment and they're kind of connected to each other. So that was the second one. And then the third one is this concept of deliberate practice. So for those of you who are coming to PMO Learn in Edinburgh, I'm doing a session on reflection, and this is going to kind of come up as well. This concept of deliberate practice. So rather than just kind of work hard and practice, it's actually about setting targets for ourselves and looking at what we want to achieve every time we try again. So this is kind of, as I said, it's not just kind of blind. It's not the quantity of the practice, it's the quality of the practice that counts. So this is where, and I don't think it's a huge thing, because this is what came to me as I was reading the book from a PMO perspective. And what we talk about in the House of PMO a lot is about having a PMO vision and those PMO services. So the PMO vision defines our objectives for our particular PMO and what we want to do. And that to me kind of gets us to our kind of aligned goals. And having the growth mindset is part of the kind of that optimism and the hope of actually saying, we can make a difference in our organization. Once we get a sponsor on board, we've got an idea of where we want to get to. And then the PMO services, which are kind of where we're going to drive those key results, allow us to do that deliberate practice. So allow us to do on a regular basis to review what we're doing and say, actually, we're making a difference, but looking at kind of going around in iterations and saying, so what are the services we need to provide in order to achieve those objectives? So for me, I just thought I enjoyed the book, I enjoyed the audio book, but I thought it was really an interesting take on how we can work in a PMO. And the one last thing, which also kind of I thought was a really good thing, was it said for those people who develop grit through some of those things I've just talked about, have better mental health because they're generally happier because they're working at something. They're demonstrating how we're moving forward and doing something of value to us in the organisation. So not a bad word to say really about having kind of better mental health and being happy by working hard.
Brilliant, excellent, thank you very much. So I quite like this little segment because I won't read a lot of these things. I know because you will, so you'll just tell me. I do them all the time, Eileen, you see. So I think this is a good little way actually to get some of these self-help things and the insights out of those. So thank you very much, smiley face. So yes, it's on to a final bit, which we didn't do this last time, so it's nice to bring this segment back. Let's have a look at our next subject with a hot seat. And I think one of the things we've mentioned to you before is that we love and want more practitioners as well in the hot seat. So I'm delighted that Shane, where are you? How are you doing? Are you coming off? There he is. Look, there he is. We've seen him many times. I've got a PMO flash mob thing above your head because that's how we first met, when you came along to a flash mob, and I cannot remember life of me remember when it would have been, but it's a long time ago, based on some of the pictures that I've been seeing as I've looked back at some of the previous flash mobs we've done. Shane looking very young, but yeah, we've known each other a little while, haven't we, Shane?
Yeah, I think it was the one in the boat, the first one I came to in when was that, 2015 maybe, I think it was.
Oh, I see there. We've been going a while. So Shane, not only a long oh look, there you go, still looking good, Shane, eh? There you go. And yes, and sorry, I've dropped the E. You know, it's the 90s all over again. So Shane, you mentioned last time you were on HotHouse that you just snuck it into conversation that you had finished an apprenticeship. And one of the things that I'm really conscious of is that we've not talked a lot actually about apprenticeships, because I think many people, certainly of a certain age, think it's still one of those things that you do when you finish school before you start working, which is not the case. So I just wanted to ask you a few questions about your apprenticeship, which you've successfully done. So can you just tell us a little bit about what apprenticeship you actually did?
Yeah, no problem. So I did the level 4 associate project management apprenticeship, and so I did that, and I'd also included the APM PMQ exam. But my understanding is now that going forward that the APM PMQ is only included in the level 6 degree apprenticeship one, but I did the level 4. So,
and how come you decided to do an apprenticeship like that?
well, I thought obviously working as a PMO, I work with project managers daily, and there's a lot of project managers in the team. So I just thought it's a really good opportunity to learn and do something that's practical. So like the one thing that I really liked about it was the practical learning. So and some of that, a lot of that was covered in my role as a PMO, but then there's other parts that I did have to work more closely with project managers. So
can you speak a little bit more about maybe one of the practical elements so I can understand what you mean?
So for example, one was on stakeholder mapping as an example. So you had to show how you've done stakeholder mapping within the workplace and have to provide relevant examples. So that could either be done on a paper, a PowerPoint presentation, or other times we have like professional discussions, they were called, where you would talk through your experience. So
okay, all right, so wind back a bit then. So how on earth do you even get to have the opportunity to do an apprenticeship? I mean, it's not something that you do necessarily straight after school.
yeah,
You're doing it while you're working. Yeah, I mean, is this something that your organization has kind of sponsored you to do, or?
yeah. So fortunately, the organization I work for, Queen Mary University of London, they really promote the staff to encourage to do apprenticeships. The thing is with most organizations in the UK pay into, it's called the apprenticeship levy, and that money's set aside for employees to do apprenticeships. But the only thing is that your employer needs to give you 6 hours per week that you can dedicate to your apprenticeship. So, and they were quite flexible in that. But sometimes like the 6 hours is actually included in the work you're doing anyway, because it's part of the job. So
are you actually being are you doing some kind of formal bit of training then, and how was the training done?
yeah, so the training for me was it we had was it I think it was 5 one-day workshops on teams where we went through material relating to the APM PMQ. Then we had a 2-day exam preparation workshop, and then I had regular meetups with it was called a teaching assessor from the training organization, where it was generally like around once a month, where we catch up and go through things.
Okay. And are you seeing these people like face to face, or are you doing it like virtually?
Mine was all done virtually, so everything, even the exam I did was done virtually as well. So it was all virtually, but obviously within the workplace itself, there was things I had to do in person. So.
Okay, so when you said that you'd passed your apprenticeship, what is that? What have you? Is it just an exam, or is it an accumulation of stuff that you've been doing, or how does
so to the at the end of your apprenticeship, I believe it's for all apprenticeships, you've got something called an EPA, which stands for Endpoint Assessment. And these vary slightly depending on the apprenticeship. But for mine personally, it involved a presentation section, which was approximately 20 minutes presentation and 20 minutes questions and answers on 5 of the 15 topics. And then the other 10 topics were covered in a 1-hour professional discussion. Okay. And mine was open, like, well, wouldn't say open book, but open notes, where you could look at all the material you've submitted to support your portfolio.
Are you doing it? Do you get the chance to meet other people that are also doing the apprenticeship, or is it just you're very much just doing it with a trainer, teacher?
Yeah, but as I was saying, it's one of those, like, I've met them on Teams, and there's some of them I've remained in contact with and like just messaging now and again, but I haven't met anyone else in person that I've done it with. So, but so.
You should invite them down to the flash mob.
So, but well, I'm just trying to think, were any of them like PMO practitioners? There was quite a few project manager or junior associate project managers in the course I did. So
yeah, so I was gonna say, I mean, it's interesting to a project management one. I mean, the other apprenticeship that I do know of that is good for people that are working in PMO is the one that's all around project data analytics, which is got various levels for that as well. And if anybody who's interested, you can go and check that out through Projection Success, is the company that I would do the project hack that kind of do that apprenticeship as well, which is obviously another way to do it. But how did you find doing that against like the day work and stuff? Could you handle it easily, or did it get to a point where there's bits where it's quite stressful, there's a lot going on? Or
yeah, so basically what I did was, like, because obviously ideally you spend 6 hours, but like not always you can spend 6 hours. So so there are certain times of the year, so early January as an example was a quieter time at work for me, so that's when I did my exam, and I give myself like time so I could prepare for it, and then also early August I knew usually wasn't as busy at work, so that's when I did the endpoint assessment. So it was kind of any key deadlines was I tried to do them whenever I knew I wouldn't be as busy at work, so and just managed everything else I could. But as well, the learning was quite flexible as well. So I did like podcasts and stuff, listen to that, because obviously you go for a walk, that's quite useful. So yeah.
So is anybody tempted who's been listening to Stuart talking about this today? I mean, it's sorry, Shane, who's been, has anybody been thought about maybe doing an apprenticeship, or actually you're not given it much thought before, but you might actually start to look into something like this? It seems to be a good way for a professional development, but it's not just that training course where you're only doing it for 3 days and then, I'm assuming doing it over a period of time like this, that you're more likely to be able to embed your learning and you'd start to utilize it more in the workplace.
So well, it's one of those, definitely, because mine was like minimum of a year to do it. It had to be done within 12 to 18 months, I believe it was. So
right. Yeah, and Stuart asked the question, so what next? What else are you going to do? Because I know you enjoy learning quite a lot, so what else do you think you might do?
I'll possibly consider looking into the chartership as a project professional, potentially down the line. Might consider doing that. So
and for anybody who's not familiar, if you take a look at the Association for Project Management, that's what you're referring to. So the
Yeah.
Any questions for Shane, John, or Eileen after listening to that? And I've got a dog that's getting see.
No, I just think the apprenticeships, it'll be interesting to see again, you know, that the world continues to change about the way now the organisations support learning and development. So getting somebody in doing that training while you're working. And I think, as you pointed out, Shane, the benefit of actually having to produce evidence that you've actually done the thing rather than read a textbook and write about, I could fill out a risk register, I know what goes in every column, is very different to see, here I've done one. So that kind of bringing of evidence, I think, is a great way to reinforce the learning and truly assess that people can do the job. So I think that, you know, apprenticeships to me are a great way, you know, great, not that you would ever want to leave your current employer, Shane, but it's a great way to say, you know, look, not only have I got a qualification that says I know about it, I actually can do it as well.
Yeah, no, because that's a good point, Eileen, because I remember my very first professional discussion as part of the apprenticeship. The teaching assessor stopped the conversation after a couple of minutes and goes, I can see you know this stuff from a knowledge perspective, but where's the evidence in the workplace?
Yep.
And so we, instead of having an hour call, we had a 5-minute call, and then I went away, redid my presentation prep with actual evidence from the workplace. So,
and I think as well, you know, we've talked about a few times on this session about the 70-20-10, about 70% of your learning is actually kind of doing things rather than learning about things. And I think what it does, it puts a real emphasis on your manager and you as an individual to have a conversation with your manager and say, look, I need to get experience of these things over the next 18 months because I'm doing this qualification. But also, you know, if we're a PMO manager, we should be thinking about, you know, kind of our people who work for us and say, how do we actually give people that experience rather than just sending them on a course to kind of learn about stuff.